Welcome to the 2013 Fusion Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Fusion took place November 14th through 16th at People's Church in Salem. The following workshop, entitled Safeguarding Your Kids and Youth, was brought to us by St. John, Eyre.
So, a little bit about myself is I am no expert in security, so I profess nothing in expertise in this, but I do believe it is an absolute necessity on this. I typically go by what you see in trends, what we see in the news, and what we see happening. I remember probably the first time I heard about an incident with a church in the 7 years that I've been in Oregon. It took place here at People's Church, where someone came in and there was a situation, and it was it got concerning, and it happened in the main sanctuary as well. I remember the first time hearing about that, I thought, wow. And now that I'm in the church where I'm located at, we are right off the interstate. We're across the street from Fred Meyer and Walmart. We have a high transient population and a high meth addiction issue going on in our community. As a result of that, we are surrounded by unstable people. And in that, we have had people literally bolt through our church, and we had to force chase them as well, because they were sleeping on our property, and we had to move them along, and they take issue with us. They'll take our doormats outside, and they'll become their blankets, and that we have found that they've defecated on the side of our church. We had one guy just start to strip down while I had a room full of children in the educational wing, and he started to strip down behind what he thought was bushes where no one could see him. And when I confronted him about it, he could care less. And as a result, he left me all of his dirty undergarments when he did leave and vacate. But I had a bunch of children come out screaming in the hallway like, oh no, my eyes are burning, and all that stuff on there. So we have an unstable population that we as a church are trying to reach, and we as a church are commanded to reach out to. But we have to do that in a way where we have some of the most valuable assets, our youth and children, and how do we have best practices for them? And some situations in the years that I've been in ministry, in a total of active ministry, 13 years employed or working in ministry, but many years in lay ministry before that. I've seen many as well that are in ministry, whether there are volunteers or they're actually people who are on staff at a church who have had moral failures that have involved people within the church, students within the church as well. What are we doing as well to make sure have we done the best we can to prove we've covered all of our bases, and have we really considered our situations that can be there? You could walk around any church and you can see places where people can be compromised if someone can get them into a corner where they're not seen. This is a big building. How do you cover that if someone wanted to try and lure someone away into a room that nobody's watching? Because there's 100 rooms in this building right now that are not being monitored. So we can be really vulnerable in things. So we need to find out as well, who are we letting come in contact with people, and what are we allowing them to do? So there's some things there. So let me give you an idea of what we're going to cover here, and then I'll give you a handout as well. We're going to identify measures that can be employed to decrease the likelihood of having these negative events happening on our church campus. We're going to take a look at some internet safety best practices as well. Volunteer screening that we're going to take a look at. Safeguarding students in our care. Medical emergencies, allergies, and documents. These are really key. One of the things that I find is for the longest time, I thought I do a really good job catching allergy alerts, catching documentation, medical releases from parents, and medical information. But if I ever had to have a kid transported by the ambulance, it was too hard for me to get to those documents. They were in my assistant's office somewhere in her desk, which I did not know where that was, because she was the records keeper. But when that child goes and is being sent away, I need to make sure I have that information available. So I started to change some things and look at it. There are things that I thought I was doing well, and I realized I could be doing them better. Couple things as well is for me, I worked at up north here in the Portland area when I first came to Oregon, and worked in the kind of the city section, metro section. I moved south, went to Grants Pass, Southern Oregon, and since I'm down there, I now went from having no guns to having 3 guns. I went from having no pickup truck to having a pickup truck. I went to having no 4-wheeler quad to I now have the biggest monster you can imagine riding in the woods out there as well. And I do own some camo stuff on there. So I tell people the South will change a man on there. But it's the environment we live in down there. There's people that pursue different things than they do in a more metro area as well. But one of the things I've come to realize is the opportunities and the statistics are still the same no matter which region we are. A pedophile is a pedophile. Doesn't matter what environment you put them in, they're still a pedophile. So we have to be aware of those as well for that. I also have had to have the conversation. I decided to become a member of the NRA. Yay! I also got myself certified to concealed carry in 32 of our states as well. So 9 out of 10 times I carry a gun with me, but I do not carry one when I'm in church as well. And I'll share a little bit about that when I had great conversations with my leadership team and our safety team about the pros and cons of should we or shouldn't we do that as well for that. So we'll let you know. I've never shot anybody or anything other than targets, and I don't tend to hit them most of the time anyway. So just to let you know about that as well.
Can I get an extra?
You sure may, because I got a bunch here.
I'll take one.
Yeah, you can have a couple more as well. And also, if you are interested in wanting this PowerPoint to be emailed to you, I'll give you my business card if you want it. And you can send me a request, and I'll get this to you as well. So if you ever want to share this in your church, you'll be able to do that as well, okay? For that. So let's move on forward here as we go through. No reading ahead for those of you that are the A-types where you say, I got to know everything going on ahead of time on there. Resist the urge. Some of the cornerstones that we have to look at. We have to have a safety team. Now, a safety team is not the people who will be carrying the guns. The safety teams are the people who are going to dream what we need to do in our churches. We need to make sure that we have policies, building policies that help you to manage a safe team and a facility. Also, we need the security team. The security team is the one who will do the tackle. They're the ones who will possibly be your retired detectives or active police force that are going to be the concealed carriers as well. So keep that in mind. I'm talking about two different things when I say safety team and security team. One is the ones who are the planners, the outliners, the designers, the architects of your program. And then the security team are those ones who are, I call them the muscle and hustle team at my church, is what I call them. And people, do you know who is on your team and how well do you know them as well? And we're going to take a look at what do we think might be a best practice on that. I have had several times in the churches I've been at where people have come up to me and said, hey, I want to work in kids ministries. And they've just come through our doors. And it's a red flag for me on there. Unless it's a case, where the only time I've ever made an exception is if someone can really vouch for them and they've moved away, they've been members of the family, they're a patriarch, and they've moved back into the area, maybe college ended or something like that. That's the only time I make an exception. That's with a lot of endorsements from people who I trust are endorsing them on that as well. And then usually it always involves my pastor's approval on that as well because I want someone else to make that call with me. Here's some statistics, folks. January 1999 to November 2009, there were 261 incidences of violent crime occurring in or on property of churches or ministry centers in this time period. Okay, this is a 10-year window. In that 10-year window, 139 violent attacks resulted in the death of others. Now, we're talking these are on church properties or church ministry centers. In those 139 attacks, only 11 were stopped before the offender was done. Only 11 got stopped before the offender was done. 6 were by law enforcement, 5 times by people within the church or within the ministry, whether that be just the innocent bystander in your church, grandma with a purse with a brick in it, or a member of your security team on there. So you can see here out of 139, only 11 were stopped before they were done carrying out what they wanted to do. What that tells me there is we had many more that were very successful. There was probably a facility or a church caught without a plan. I'm going to jump back for a second. I'm glad you're here. One of the things is this is not an exciting thing to build in your church. This is hard to get approval for. You almost need your lead pastor's buy-in on this as well. And with your lead pastor's buy-in, you will gain a lot more traction on it. So if you were to leave here and say, I think I'm going to try and launch some of this, don't do it on your own. Carry the vision. Make sure your lead pastor's in there with you, and then we'll start to look at who's going to be our security team, who's going to be, the muscle and hustle types as well there. In this incident in 2009, November 8th, 2009, Reagan, Tennessee, a 37-year-old Greg Tubbs shot and killed during a confrontation in the parking lot. So this was outside Stonehill Pentecostal. May 31st, 2009, Wichita, Kansas. Controversial abortion doctor George Tiller gunned down fatally by Scott Roeder in the lobby of the Reformation Lutheran Church while serving as an usher on there. So we see that taking place. This one here, 2012, a very recent one. Single mother and her 11-year-old daughter getting out of a car when a man approached and tried to grab the girl. He was on drugs at the time, believed the girl was his daughter. Mother got into a physical altercation and sent her daughter running into the church for help. Man was arrested twice in the past 24 hours and was released due to lack of jail bed space, which is very much a reality right now, right? They can't hold a lot of these people. This time he was jailed on attempted kidnapping charges. The reason I know that one is because that happened to Ashley and Lisa Nunez at my church on there, and the guy was tweaking. And I could tell you that out of 4 Sundays in a month, about 3 of them, we'll have someone enter our church who's tweaking on drugs. We'll be there, nervous, paranoid, all kinds of delusions will take place, and we have to become really aware and how to deal with that. And so it's becoming a real issue for us in the environment on there. So this man was pretty scary. The mother threw herself into a physical altercation with him. She literally threw herself in, as a mother would do, to get Ashley to run. And Ashley did not know where to run to do. We kind of walked through and said, Ashley, where did you try to get in at? How did it work for you? We wanted her feedback as well. And she's a really smart girl. She was 11 years older at the time. She's now 13, but she was super smart about it, and she was very methodical on there, but she did great. She did great. Statistics, take a look at this. On my pie chart there, you'll see the biggest part of the pie chart is, what are most of the things, the weapons of choice? It looks like it's guns. 64.15% people are using guns when in campus ministry issues. Knives is at 16.6, explosives 4.15, the auto, and then other 33. And so you look at other, and that could be things improvised. That could be a baseball bat, a brick, a boulder off a piece of property, whatever they're using for improvised. So what is the main thing people are using? Guns. Therefore, what is probably the one thing you got to make sure that you're trying to protect from? Guns. What are the schools right now trying to build when they tell kids how we're going to go into lockdown mode? What's the one thing they were really trying to protect themselves from? A shooter. Because that's been their number one challenge they're having. So it's happening in the schools. It's going to happen in our churches as well. I'm a gloom and doom person here. I'm so sorry. Let me apologize now. Moving on. 193 people killed, 238 injured in this 10-year period. 37% took place inside the church, but check that third one out. How many of our altercations, where are they taking place? That majority is outside the church. They're happening outside the church. That crazies are waiting outside. They'll watch in the parking lot. That's why parking lot security is so important as well. We can watch inside our sanctuary, but people need to be protected coming in as well. 44% take place during a service time, but 56% take place during non-service time. How many of you know that your church keeps office hours? How many of you know that your receptionist is the first line of defense, first to go, easiest to replace? That's what I tell my assistant. She's our first person. She's like, I feel really vulnerable. So that's because you're highly replaceable in that position on there, and you're what we call an expendable expense. And she doesn't like when I say that to her. 3 out of 4 times it's a single attacker. Very rarely is it more than one attacker. So it's probably a begrudging or drug-induced issue that's taking place. Safety team. So we're taking a look here now, folks, on this. And then I'm going to give you we'll get some nuts and bolts. I know this is very high-level stuff right now. What will they do? Your safety team, you should expect them that they will develop a medical emergency plan. Right there, right now, folks, that is probably the number one emergency that you'll face at your church. The number one emergency that you'll face at your church is a medical emergency. So think right now, it's Sunday morning, you're in your church, someone in the middle of the sanctuary suddenly has a coronary heart attack. They're having massive heart failure. Do you have a plan? Do you know who's calling 911? Do you know who's going to get the ambulance to the right place and who's going to direct? Do you have a chain of people set up to help that person in your church get the immediate help they need? Who on your team also can take charge of that situation? Should it be your pastor who's at the pulpit? Should it be your team? Should it be one of your head ushers? And those are all questions that you can work through with that. But right now, you should have those decisions made in place ahead of time. Because what we're going to tell you to do is, we want you to respond to your plan. We don't want you to respond to the emergency. And that's what we're going to start setting everything up as. Let's respond to our plan, not our emergency. Next, you're going to take a look and say, what's your natural disaster plan? What are natural disasters that can happen in Oregon? It's a beautiful state. Nothing happens here, right? Yeah, I still get freaked out every time I drive on the coast and I see the now entering tsunami zone. I get excited when I say now leaving tsunami evacuation zone. And I take the next ridge and I'm back into it again, it seems. So therefore, I've got an indication that says I do have some natural disasters that could happen. We had Mount St. Helens. Nobody saw that coming, but I'm sure it devastated a large number of people and communities, and we saw a high incidence of things. We have found out that our church, being a larger church as well, the Red Cross has approached us as being an emergency disaster center for that. We don't know what that means. They have a plan. We just showed them our facilities. They have built a plan based on our facilities if they need it for our community at large type situation on there. You had your hand up.
Yeah, in our area, I'm from East Michigan, and we had a chemical depot burn process going on, so we had shelter-in-place kits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had to implicate that in our
Yeah.
training, so that's kind of difficult.
And one of the things as we look at as well is when I talk about natural disasters as well is a lot of times your church becomes a place of refuge. Do you have a plan of how you can set up and start to accommodate people overnight in your church on there? Can you take care of their hygiene, their food, and their billeting needs? And that's a good thing to have sometimes, and you just pray you never need to execute that plan, but you should have it. Also, a security incident plan as well. What happens in a situation? There are people who are in your church and love your church and well-intentioned, but something goes wrong in their family and things go south. They sometimes will turn tail on you and become your biggest nightmare in court over things. So do you have an incident report plan as well that you've created there? Who do you consider when you're building this security team? Well, people who are experts in this area. So we take a look at people who have law enforcement background. Would be good. Trusted concealed carry persons, perhaps, who have a desire and a good, mature sense about safety. I'm not talking about somebody who loves to walk down the street with an AK-47 across their back because it's their right to do so, and they want to instigate things just to get people talking to exercise their rights. I don't want someone like that on my team. I'm not saying what they're doing is 100% wrong, but I don't think that what we need to do is make our church look like a gun-toting environment, on there. So we wonder about that. And also this is do not open advertise. This is a one-on-one thing. Have a team that meets. Just like, when we think about who do we want to bring in our church as a board member, we have talks about who we think would be good as a new leader coming on a rotation in church as a board member. We don't open advertise. Say, who wants to be a board member? It's out there. Please come to our next business meeting. Because that can get weird. So you want to wonder about this one as well on this, okay? Next thing on our security team as well, that security team needs to make sure they're training ushers, the media techs, the greeters. Why do I say media techs? Why do you think? Why do you want to train media people?
They're in the back. Well, in our church, it's
Tell me about them.
more straight. You walk in, media's right there.
Okay, so the crow's nest type thing is in the back of your church. Okay, great. So they have eyes on everybody. Good. Why else might you?
If you have a computerized system, like for TVs, man,
Yeah.
you could easily put information up there.
Yeah.
So take it wrong to get information out fast.
Have you guys noticed all the cameras here when you walk into people's church outside? There's, I think, 4 of them before you ever, when you come in the parking lot, they're watching you, seeing you come in. And they're out here in the concourse level as well there. Those are feeding somewhere. That's a great team to have eyes on situation. Also, for us, we do live streaming of our services over the internet, so we have a media team in like a studio booth thing, and they're running everything. They have remote control, and they're running cameras. They can see everything, and they can zoom in. And we keep them on a special radio and a special pager system as well, along with our ushers and they can communicate to each other saying, hey, I'm checking out something that looks a little odd. This guy looks really agitated. He's gotten up, gotten down 4 or 5 times situation. What do you think we should do about that? And the camera will zoom in, and maybe our head security will go up to the media booth and say, zoom in on, let me take a look at him for a while, without him knowing he's being watched. He could just be very well either being moved by the Spirit, or he's going through a divorce, financial setback, and you don't want to hurt that person, but we got to be wise as well on there. So the radios, the pagers, the phone systems. One of the things I wonder right now is how many of you have ministries on your campus where you're actually physically separated into separate buildings? Does anybody have multiple buildings that you use on there? So what happens if you have a shooter in the sanctuary? How do you notify and shut down and lock down those other areas? That's going to be important on there. A lot of times we see the shooters will do their business and try to run if they don't take their own life. That's the 2 of their MOs. They'll either try do the suicide route, or they'll try to flee. And we see a lot of them in the schools. They'll flee into the woods. They don't necessarily think about their escape route. So therefore, if they're running loose on your campus, they may run into another building type thing. So watching last night, Lee Harvey Oswald, he ran into a movie theater. After he did some shooting, so it was interesting. If possible, have a mix of professionals, civil servants, medical people are great to have on this. Medical people are being trained in their jobs on how to respond to emergencies. A natural asset to have there. Make sure we're doing our training in first aid and CPR as well. We also keep the emergency cardiac systems in a few places in our churches. We keep wheelchairs available where we have them. We also have a crash board as well, which is that stiff board if you had to actually lift someone up who could not be ambulatory and we had to physically move them as well. So we keep a couple of those things. Anyone as well that can be in a position of authority over a student must be screened. Here's what we did. We went to our ushers and said, we need you to do a background screen. Why? I'm just an usher. You have the authority to direct people, to direct children. And if you can direct children into a closet, you're going to be screened. And they said, well, okay. And we had a few people raise eyebrows. They didn't like it. They're like, well, don't you trust me? And they were misunderstanding. But we said just to prove it, we went, and now all of our pastoral staff are all subjected to screening as well. Every single one. Every staff member we hire from housekeeping up is going to be there. But anyone that could ever be in a position of authority over a minor, whether that's youth or elementary age children under, they will all now be subject to be screening. And we do it once every 2 years. On there. In our facilities, this is coming from some experts as I listened to them. They said you should try and have rooms with windows. Be as open as you can to be visually available to people to see. Not necessarily for shooters, but that's to gain the confidence of people as well from the protection of inappropriate behavior. If you do not have windows and you have doors, try and keep your doors open when you're running your ministry. Do not be behind closed doors. These are great doors right here. I love them. They're glass. There's nothing that's going to happen inappropriate right in this area. Now, right around the corner, though, you can see, look what we got. Something could be going on there, or you could be on the other side of this door. But now we've got windows going all around here. So there's not really a lot of, if there was a shooter holed up in this room, there's not a lot of places going to hide without being scoped out to some degree as well on that. The other side of this, though, is could we lock ourselves into this room? Not with those swinging doors. It doesn't look like there's any locks we can manipulate as users. There's a closet. You might be able to get into that, but that's difficult. Make sure you stay highly visible. The experts say have some type of physical barriers or control access to your ministries with people. We lock ourselves in kids' ministries. We're in a separate building, elementary kids. Our middle schoolers are in an even farther building at the far end of our campus in a gymnasium complex, and they lock themselves in. If a parent wants to pick their kid up early, it's a little inconvenient, but it's what we will do on that. We have a doorbell system. They can ring the doorbell, and we can look. We've put big, huge look holes in our doors in the elementary. And I know it just seems weird, but I cannot have somebody who's tweaking come walking through the elementary wing while we're focused in with our children. It's an impossible situation for us. Physical barriers. So limit your entry points as well. How many doors do you want people coming in? How many doors do you unlock in your service agenda to let people come in? In our church sanctuary, we have a typical sanctuary like the one that's here at People's Church. It's that big round auditorium style. We have doors in the rear. We have doors on the sides, and we have doors in the front. All of our signs say, with the exception of our main foyer, these doors will be locked 15 minutes after service begins. And our housekeeping detail goes through and starts locking all the doors back up on there. People who come late, I watch them through my windows in the Ed wing, and I see them across. I'm like, there they go. And they have to turn, and they have to do the long walk to the front of the church to get in. I see it on there. And we encourage our people, if you hear the door being tugged and you're on the inside, don't open it. Don't open it. That's not your job on there, and it's an inconvenience. But we don't have peepholes there for you. You don't know, and you might be well-intentioned, but you could also be opening us up to a little harm. Assume the worst and apply common sense in your facilities on that as well. My next remodel I'm doing the preschool will involve a roll-down cage door, because right now in our preschool it's attached to the sanctuary building, physically attached. There's no barriers. And so if a shooter went from the sanctuary, they could get right into our preschool nursery wing. And the kids could lock themselves into the rooms with the teachers, and we have a lockdown plan, but I don't have a way of keeping them out of the wing. So my remodel, it'll now have in the ceiling a pull-down cage like you see in the malls when they close off the stores and stuff. We're going to employ the same thing in ours as well, and just pray we never need it. What policies do you already have in place? I was at my church for 2 years before I realized we had policies. And my pastor's like, oh yeah, we have a policy for that. I'm like, where are these? I've never seen them. We're probably a little light on administration in our church, and so I had to go digging for some things on there. If you do have policies, when's the last time these things were updated? How archaic are they? Let me jump back. Were they updated? Did you do a building remodel? Recently we did a remodel. I had to make sure that all of our bushes got pulled out from around the children's wing. We had these big bushes, and we couldn't have those, and we had to get rid of them. We have now little tiny ones because our homeless people were sleeping in them. On there.
Yeah, that was my question. Why did you remove them? Because we have them around.
Yeah.
Our rooms.
We moved them away because they became a place for people to hide. I have an entrance to our preschool. It's a double door, and it was a little dim. There was one little lamp post with this like 1976 glass frosted glass bulb. That was all the lighting that was there. And these were mothers going through with children in their hands. And I thought this is horribly wrong. And I had them yank the things. We put in the high output lights, the halogens, and we'll get the LEDs when we go to cost efficiency. But that place is so illuminated now. Since we've done that, we no longer have people prone to sleeping in that. That used to be a great place to sleep because you couldn't be seen from the street. And with the lighting there now, we've kind of had those people move away from that as well. Emergency evacuation plans. If you had to emergency evacuate in your church right now, parents are fleeing the sanctuary, fire alarms going off, whatever it is, children are going somewhere. And how are you getting those children safely back connected with their parents as well? You have to consider that. Teenagers, are they on their own loose? Because a lot of times churches will let teenagers self-dismiss. But when it's an emergency situation and they can't find their teenager, who do they grab by the neck? You. Because they were put into your care. Now you are suddenly in their care, but they had no problem the other 365 days a year when you were letting them release on their own when your service was over. It was not an issue. So what becomes an issue is, do you have an emergency evacuation plan? Where will you go meet? Where can you go meet in an emergency to not be in the way of emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances? Where is that safe place to go? When I was at Portland, our emergency evacuation was we started hiking up the back hill of our church to the playground on the elementary field. Perfect. It was a perfect place to go to. Kids were used to it. They understood what the baseball diamond was, and they knew exactly that's where we were going to go. Parents understood we will not release a single kid at all until every child was accounted for. And that was our policy we wrote. We made sure the parents got our plan. We published it. We gave it to them, said, in an emergency, we will hold your children in a lockdown. And you know what? They take issue with it at church. Will they take issue at school? No, they know they can't fight the school system, right? They just know the school's got them in lockdown, school will not release them, and the police will back them up. In a church, it seems like the game plan changes. I don't know why, for some reason. Just like I find the hierarchy, parents will walk in and take kids out of kids' church early if they need to leave. They'll do it. Parents will be a little reluctant, but more likely to take you out of middle school if they have to leave early on a Sunday or a Wednesday. They're a lot more reluctant if you're in high school and they don't want to interrupt because they really know you need Jesus because they live with you. So I tell you that churches have a hierarchy of how we do things, and there is a hierarchy of how parents will do things when it comes to dealing with a school versus dealing with their church. And they're a lot more liberal in how they deal with their church than they are with their school on that. So the other one that we recently had a conversation with was a bunch of children's pastors in our state was, you have now a volunteer who has a medical marijuana card. Do they work with your kids? Ooh, good thought. We had a long conversation, a lot of us talking about it, and our conclusion was no. Even if they have a medical marijuana card, we would say no, we wouldn't let them on that as well. And we cited several reasons for that. Whether anybody wants to believe in that or not, it's a choice that you have to make. But we were finding this is a new thing you have to consider. So we were excited to start looking at that. What does the recruiting and volunteer placement look like? We have a 6-month waiting period at my church. If you come to our church, you cannot volunteer in anything with minors until you've been there for 6 months. We also do screenings, and we have limitations as well, meaning that you can't get records on minors. A lot of records on minors you cannot have access to, even if they did anything. The reason I know some of this is challenging is I have a young man. He was 17 years old. Right now he's 19. He's at our church as an intern. He's an excellent guy. I know that. He had a very troubled young childhood. His home was broken. He was exposed to some things which were in the form of abuse. As a result of that, he's documented within the DHS system. Now our church does kids camp, and our church does Royal Family Kids Camp. When we have kids camp, I get to decide who comes and works with kids. That's my call. When we do Royal Family Kids Camp, we, as a church and DHS, have to approve who works with kids. Guess what DHS says about him? They won't let him come work with us at Royal Family Kids Camp with foster kids because he's been a victim of abuse in the background, and they're aware of it. Even though it happens as a minor, he's now 19, he's in our church, he's an awesome guy. We take him with us to other things. We had no problem with it. We have full confidence, but DHS will not waver on that one as well. But therefore, there are limitations. We would not have known he had that background until the first year he tried to apply to work at Royal Family Kids Camp, and DHS came back and flagged it to us and said, no, there's some record information there on that. And we felt really bad. We had to tell this young man he couldn't go. And he said, I understand. And he had a really good, mature attitude about it. So that student screenings, negative results. What happens if someone's background just totally bombs? You know, they've been convicted of a felony. They've been convicted of drug possessions, things like that. Nobody walks on water. I am all about restoring a person, and I want them to thrive, and I don't want them to feel persecuted, and I don't want to validate so that some idiot out there can say those Christians are all hypocritical. I want to see people restored. I'll get them into something else. If they can't work with children, if they've fallen through in one of those areas where we say definitely can't use you, I'm going to put them in another area of ministry wherever we can. I'm going to do whatever I can to place them on there, but I will never make exceptions to those rules as well. That's 6 months. Yes.
I have a question on student screenings. I have youth who want to start. This is the first time. I'm so excited. We actually have a youth leader.
Yay!
And that is wanting the youth to help out with the kids' ministries. I'm so excited. What do we do for student screenings for the youth? Is there screenings?
There isn't more you can do than your own interviewing.
Okay.
And then also the checking up on their references as well. And a lot of their references are going to be their youth leaders. So one of the things I mentioned, I think, in our first night session is our youth have taken over our nursery on one of our Sundays in the month. They own it, and the youth come in. But with them comes 4 of the youth sponsors, couples that are married couples, as well as the youth pastor comes in as well. And they're all in there with the students on that. We know we haven't screened the kids, but we also know that we sit down and talk about the kids. We have some kids that just want to socially hang out in the nursery, and we don't want them. And the youth knows we don't want them. So what we've done is we've kind of narrowed it down to who we let come in and who we don't let come in. We kind of make sure that we're comfortable with who we're letting in as well.
So my thoughts with having a screened adult needs to be in there.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. We never let youth. Yeah.
I'm not going to back down on that one.
Yeah. We never let youth be in charge. Even when I go to camp in the summer, I'm up at camp early because I'm the director, so I'm up there. I never ride. I know it's a bummer. I never ride the camp bus up with all the smelly kids on the way to camp. They have to come up, and I have 4 of my student leaders on that bus. They're 19, 20. They're still pretty young, on there. But I make sure that I've got 2, very good mature adults on that bus as well, on that bus ride up, and the bus ride home with that as well. But overall, I would never let just teenagers be in charge of kids. Yeah. And if it came down to that, if we had a classroom where I had a teenager and an adult assigned to a classroom and the adult didn't show up, that teenager will merge into another room and that whole class will go as well. But that we won't make an exception there. So good question. Emergency procedures for fire building evacuation. You need to make sure you have those. Medical, the most likely emergency to happen in any church. How do you do a lockdown in your church? Think about it. And also an earthquake situation. React to your plan, not the emergency, and then make sure you publish your plan. Now, so far, guys, you've maybe come to this workshop, and I don't know, but inside your head, like thinking, man, I was really hoping he would give me something well outlined in detail. I do have that for you as well. So you're going to get that as well. Or at least I'm going to tell you where you're going to get it, and I'll show it to you what it looks like. I was impressed with it. These people knew what they were doing. They're experts, and it was under $60 to have all that information. So it was a great investment. So you don't have to sit down and reinvent the wheel. What's your check-in, check-out process? Some people think they only need to check in, check out babies, preschoolers, or maybe elementary kids. Do you check in, check out youth? Do they have to be accounted for? They're a little freer, and sometimes they're a little wilder and things like that as well. One of the things that we looked at with our youth ministries department is they don't like to physically check them in or out. They do, but they don't want to make it feel like you're scanning in, scanning out something. So they have some really cool ushers and greeters that are very relational and checking with them. We're just talking, they're like, yeah, great, gotcha, and gotcha, and they do that. But what they're also able to do, though, is with the systems that are available out there now, you can actually have where you can produce an immediate, in-the-moment report and tell you exactly who is still in your system and out of your system for check-in, check-out procedures as well. So in our kids area, that works out great, too. We also like the check-in, check-out with kids where it produces allergy alert tags. It also notifies us if we have a current flag in there, such as separated parents and maybe a hostile taking of a child that's not. So we should raise our eyebrows and watch that. And there, yes.
I just had a real quick question. We had some instances where we had youth that were telling their parents they were reporting to church, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Have you ran across that? Or what do you think?
In the youth side, it's hard. They're wandering out. Our ushers. I went to Willie George's Church on the Move in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Massive church, 6,000 people, and they've got it going on in many ways. I noticed one thing about them is their security detail. They all wear blazers. They're dressed nice. Not like a security mall blazer. They all have their own, but they all do wear a sports jacket. On there, you can see they all have an earbud thing going on as well. But this is a big church. But one of the things is when service is underway, if you step out of the church, this is unheard of. If you step out of the church in the hallway, they watch you. You better be going to a water fountain, you better be heading to the preschool area, or you better be going to the restroom. But if you get out and you go and sit down at a barista table and just sit there and hang out, they're like, can I help you with something? And they're like, we either like you to be in the service, or we'd ask that, if you're not going to be in the service, that you would be leaving the property. And they do encounter everybody like that. And there is no loitering. There's no hanging around. So I saw that's extreme for some people, but very needed in a church of 6,000 on there. So, James River, you can imagine what security they have going on, things like that. When we have other ones, for us, our ushers encounter them. And also our youth sponsors, our leaders, they'll rotate. They'll realize, they start to watch, and they realize if some of their kids are missing, they will start to roam the campus looking for them. And say, hey, what's going on, man? And maybe it's a connection time they need to talk. If they find out they're really just loitering and just not into the disciplines of church and staying in a seat, then they're going to try and encourage and move them into that as well.
That thing is, we just figured they didn't show up. And then when the parent came, it was difficult dealing with the parent because...
Yeah. And if you have the check-in, check-out, then you'll know they never came in with us type thing. One of the things I did have as well is, how many of you have this? How many of you have elementary kids who never get picked up? It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I got that one taken care of. So I created the Kids Pass system. The Kids Pass system is this. If I have kids who consistently never get picked up because their parents have the blessing of gab with other people, and that's great. I want them to do that. I mean, you can connect, do that. That's awesome. And sometimes a lot of it as well was the PKs in my church were not getting picked up. The parents are working still. The light is on. So what I did is I created something called Kids Pass. I would look at kids that I would say, they're bored stiff. The last kids are like, hi, my mom does this, and I would approach the parents with a letter and say, hey, I've got a process here. It's called Kids Pass Enrollment. If you want and you're comfortable with it, your child can self-dismiss at the end of the service when the adult service lets out. And I have a light system that tells me when the adults are out so that your kid can come find you instead of you coming over here to my building to get them. If you want to do that, you can. And they're like, that's great. And they sign them up. And they indicate, yes, I understand my child is to report directly to me when they release. And what I do is at each of my exits in my children's facility, I have a Kids Pass roster. And it shows you the kids currently enrolled in it. So if a kid says, hey, I got to go, I'm on Kids Pass, you're looking at like, scammer. No, you're not. Well, my mom just signed me up. I said, yeah, we also told your mom it could take up to 2 weeks before your name would show up on this list, so sorry, not today. And but we have kids who beg their parents to get on Kids Pass as well. It helps us to shut down in a timely manner as well. If I have kids who abuse it, though, if they go out and they start running amok, we revoke it. And it says that when the parents line them up. If your kids abuse this privilege and are found to being disruptive, we will remove them from Kids Pass, and you will have to come back to picking them up. So it's a privilege for the parents, it's a privilege for the kids. So we've done that for self-dismissals. Yeah, email me. Email me as well. Remind me to give you my card and stuff as well, and I can give you, I've got it all written up, Kids Pass enrollment, disenrollment form. I love it. All right, abuse recognition. Does a volunteer know how to spot abuse or properly report abuse? What is our reporting procedure in Oregon, everybody? Anybody know? Questions? Child chief comes to you and says, my father is sexually abusing me. What are you legally required to do? We need to know these rules. The question is, if you know these rules, but does everybody who works on your team know these rules as well? And that's where we fall short a lot of times. The leadership knows, but it doesn't go much farther than that. And if you have a leader who doesn't know the rules and they decide, okay, I promise I won't tell anybody because you've asked me, Susie, not to tell anybody, I won't do that. I'll just pray with you about it. And they try to call that parent, whatever, you have become very liable in your church. So it's very important that your workers know. The 2 deep rule as well, if you've ever been at Royal Family, you know this, never be anywhere where there's not, without the presence of 2 adults, always in eyesight of each other when there's a minor involved. Is our policy, even with the restroom and stuff. There are times when I have to literally go in the girls' restroom in my elementary kids' church for something. And I never step in there. I don't even knock on the door and wait to see, is anybody in here? I get one of my female leaders or my wife to go in first and say, would you go in there and check, make sure, see if that's empty? And then I make them stand in the door threshold and stop kids from coming in when I go in there because maybe I've got some signage or maybe somebody's messed with something or there's a plumbing issue, who knows what. Whatever it is, I'm in there for. I do not want another kid in there when I'm in there as well. For that. Restroom policy, diaper changing. We don't let men change diapers, but we certainly let men work in the nursery, and they love it on there for us. But you do need to have a policy about your restrooms. How do you check your restrooms? In our high school gymnasium, we have shower facilities. How do we deal with that? We host other churches to stay in our church from other denominations when they're traveling through, and they'll use that policy needs to apply to our visitors as well as us. And so we make sure that they know about that as well. Closets and things like that. Do a security walkthrough. Let me roll through here as well. Restroom policies, diaper changing. Here's a question that came up. Transgenders. Someone comes in as just transgender. What's a transgender? They're what?
Born with both sexes.
Born with both sexes?
They go through a sex change. They have a sex change.
Yeah, they might be trying to approach a sex change, and one of their psychological evaluations is they must cross-dress for a year. So you have a man who's dressed up like a woman in your church. Which restroom do you let them go to? It's thought-provoking, isn't it? We had to write a policy to that because we had a transgender in our church. They were coming to us because they were conflicted about where they were going in their life and the change they were trying to pursue versus God's approval of them. We as a church, it's our responsibility to minister when someone says, would you please minister to me? But at the same time, we can't deny them the basic sanctity of going to the restroom. What do? We had to finally write a policy about that as well. When you're not sure what to do with these things, we consult with schools. They are great. Schools are networked across the United States. Also consult with your church insurance company as well. You will find that they are a great wealth of resource on things like that because they are the ones who are deciding when they're paying out and when they're not paying out, when they decide to fight something and not fight something. Volunteer recruiting, think of your potential volunteers on their potential volunteers that you could when you're looking to recruit somebody. Don't do what I call the Assemblies of God tests for volunteer recruitment. Put a mirror under the nose, and if you see steam, grab them. That's not a good litmus test to bring them on board. When it comes to volunteering as well, I caution you, do not do open invitations. It's easy to put it in the bulletin, or it's easy to throw up on the screen. Volunteers desperately needed, or we will send babies home with dirty diapers, whatever you're doing. You must come work now. Don't do that. Don't do open invitation, because what you will get is you will get people who are not compassionate to you. They are offering you sympathy, not empathy. And they're coming, and they will be very temporary to you, and you'll be right back to square one with your volunteers. The experts say is volunteer is a one-on-one thing. Keep in your glove box a volunteer application form. Keep in your office. Keep in your children's stations. Keep in your church foyer volunteer application forms. And when you find the moment, pull that thing out and give them the form. A lot of people will still say, I don't volunteer because nobody ever asked me. Okay, I'll throw it up on the screen next week in the sanctuary, and you'll see it. No, don't do it on there. So don't do open invitations. They say the best way to get volunteers is one-on-one. For me, I get volunteer recruiters. I get people who are social. They are the otter personality. They love hanging out with people. They love the parties. And I ask them to do one thing for me. Would you try and get me 3 volunteers in the next 6 months? Well, what for? I don't know yet, but I'm sure I'm going to need them. Just go get them. And they're like, oh, sure. I said, so when you're out, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you coffee once a week. You get hanging out with people? Really? So I'm just going to hang out and talk? Yeah. And they're my volunteer recruiters. I'm like, I love it. They do a great job. In our volunteering, should we background check our volunteers? Yes, we should. Where do you place your volunteers? I have, in my one church when I was out in Portland, I had such a wonderful woman. She is Assemblies of God, Sunday school, through and through, knows her stuff. I love her. She's very old school. Could not relate to being contemporary with kids, but she had a lot of value. And I loved to listen to her. I loved her stories. I knew that she had a lot to share with the kids. She just couldn't package it in the way the kids would want, because she wanted to sit down while she would just speak to them, and the kids would be like, it was like Bueller, anybody in the puddle. It was really bad. She loved missions. I put her in charge of my missions. Once a month, we would do a missions emphasis service with the kids. And I said, you own the service. I said, what I need you to do is tell me what your service is going to look like first, and so I could whittle, something if she started to go old school on me. She took charge. So what I did is I really consider about people, where am I placing them? I don't just want to fill the hole, but I need to get the right person. I use that philosophy. I not only want to get you on the bus with my team, but I need to get you in the right seat on the bus with my team as well. That's really key. Beware of someone who approaches you to volunteer, especially adults who have no connection with kids. Observe a mandatory waiting period. Be open to the Holy Spirit as well when it's speaking to you about things. If it just cautions you, be sensitive to that, and you may not have a valid reason yet to decline somebody, but you may need to as well. Do you have to show somebody the results of their background investigation? Do you? Do you know the law says if they ask, you must show them? Can you share the results of their background investigations with anybody? No. My assistant gets negative information. She doesn't share it with me. She just tells me I got a negative because I don't want to see it. And that way I can say, I didn't see the reason, but I do have to tell you we couldn't approve you on there. If you would like to know more about it, I can have you meet with my assistant about that. But on there. So it's open about, can you share this information, can you not? It's like medical records, though. If you're being declined for something, you must be shown the reason why you're being declined. We don't unless they're being involved with a thing that has to do with financial. So like Allison works with accounts. She's in charge of the accounts, counting all the money in the church along with a team. So Allison has a credit check background. Allison's also the person that whipped out her credit card and spent $17,000 for our team to buy airline tickets to Cambodia. Because our church credit card limit was not that high. Yes.
Yeah, but you said you didn't want to know if it's a situation where there's a pedophile in the church or where somebody's had some past. Do you guys have a way to notify, let's say, your security team and just say, hey, keep an extra watch on this person?
Yeah, what Allison will tell me is if it is something where we think they are a risk to our children, she'll tell me basically that they should not be around children at all. She's not telling me everything about that, but she's basically saying they should not be around children at all. I can read into whatever, but it just tells me. And what I then do is I make sure that my ushering staff, my security team knows we have someone that we should be cautious to watch. We don't watch them we watch them from a distance, but we're not going to hang on them, say, where are you going? What are you doing? Make them feel uncomfortable. But we know they should not be around children on that as well. So we'll watch when they go to the restroom and stuff. Fortunately, there's not a lot of that. But one of the things I find really interesting as well is this is, when we go into this area about pedophiles, you'll find it's great, is student records are typically sealed. You can't see a lot of information on them. Costs can vary from $6 to $50 a background check. And this is true sometimes. You get what you pay for on that. We find that there are records that are kept at state levels and federal levels, but the majority of your records that you want to check are actually your city and county records, more than your state or federal. Sometimes, a lot of times, what happens is if someone has a federal offense, let's say embezzlement they robbed a bank, you may not find that unless you are doing a federal check in the state in which the crime occurred. You would not know that. It will not show up. It's amazing. You will find more dirt, for lack of a better term, in city and county records, but those are not reported nationally. So what if you have a pedophile who's been hopping? And they do. They will hop in regions and go from zone to zone. You need to maybe run a Social Security background check. Where have they been for the last 12 months? So if you're concerned about it that way, and you start checking those county records there. Because when I submit a background check, first of all, I need to understand the company I'm dealing with. You've got to get very clear with them. How far are you checking, to what depth, and where? And make sure the service, and a lot of them will have this whole list of services they offer. And depending on what you pay for, you're getting this, you're not getting that, you're getting this, and you're not getting this and not getting this. And so you really got to check on what you're doing. The driving record, we check if our people are going to be involved in driving vehicles. We have 3 people in our church that are all first student bus drivers. And they've been checked by first students, so we know their driving record's good. So we kind of ignore that part. We never drive kids. We don't have parents drive kids anywhere in our church, things like that as well. So if we have a group of kids that we need to move somewhere, we ask the parents to drive their kids to that destination and meet us there. But we don't get in the transport business with them except for camps and conventions. Every 12 to 24 months, we want to update. And the bottom line is this. With your background checks, you need to answer this question in court. When the attorney looks at you, the judge looks at you and says, did you do just prudence to prevent this situation from taking place in your church? Can you prove it? You're like, well, yeah, we thought about doing background checks. Not good. Well, yeah, we did. We checked on this and this. He goes, did you check the pedophile database? Does anybody know about how to check pedophiles? Registered sex offenders? How do you find them? You can search them on that's free. And you can search. You'd be surprised if you look up your zip code where your church is at and find out how many registered sex offenders live within like a 5-10 block radius of your church if you're in the city area. You'd be amazed. They're there. Huh?
How do you do that?
You can do a Google search on pedophile and trying to find them. Or do a Google search on registered sex offenders, and it'll tell you a site you can go to. Punch in your zip code, and it'll pop up a map, and you'll see blips where registered sex offenders have registered and reside within. And you tell it 10-mile, 5-mile, 25-mile radius of your church.
There is an app as well you can get that will pick that up. You can see on the map where your church is.
Mm-hmm.
You mark it as your home location. It'll show all the pedophiles around. It'll also update where you're at of crimes. So you know if there's a whole lot of crimes going on around your church and what type of crimes.
Yeah, kind of the same thing you do when you're buying a home. You want to check the criminal records, what's been taking place as well, to be aware of what you're getting into. All right, medical emergencies. How many of you have emergency first aid kits available? That's good. I have a video here. I was watching a gentleman. He said his child got bumped in the head, big, huge knot in his head. They knew they had a medical emergency kit and nobody could find it. They finally found it under a cabinet somewhere for their son. Make sure your medical first aid kits are conspicuous. We have a third-party outside vendor that inventories our medical kits for us. So we're kind of leasing that service just like we do with our doormats and things like that and our paper towels and all that. So they come in and they monitor that for us because I never know which workers are going through getting a Band-Aid, getting whatever they need out of those kits on there. Make sure all your volunteers know where it's at, so you need to do some security training. Make sure you get CPR training in there. Update your student registration. I do this every year. When school starts, parents had to fill out forms. I roll right with it. I just slip mine in with a stack. So as soon as we do our promotion Sunday, our promotion Wednesday, hey, Mom, Dad, welcome back. Here's the forms. But we did this last year. Or they're like, I just did this 4 months ago. Yeah, it was your first time with us. Welcome to the promotion weekend. You got to do it again. That way, in that form, we have in there their medical emergency contact, medical release liability, photo disclosure as well, because we use our kids' pictures on Facebook to promote things that we do in kids' ministries as well, and we want to make sure the parents are okay with that. But every now and then, if I get a foster kid, I'm not allowed to post that kid's picture. But did I do enough prudence to find out from them that I shouldn't be posting that picture? Or should the parents have just assumed that we gratuitously put pictures out there all the time? Yes?
I have one thing on the volunteer CPR training. If you have nurses or doctors in your facility that come to church regularly, get with them. They can train anybody that's CPR and CPR training to do certain. I know I'm certified as Red Cross first responders.
Nice.
I take it upon myself a lot of times to communicate that importance to people. The more that people know CPR, the faster and better a life can be saved. The first 3 minutes on a CPR incident is very critical.
Yeah. And I got a kid who comes with an EpiPen every week with me. He's got a backpack, and he hands me his backpack with his EpiPen. I'm like, I never want to stick this kid with that thing ever on there. So make sure you're identifying for allergies. They're becoming more and more an issue, epinephrine things. Make sure you document. Do you have documentation? How do you document injuries when they take place? You need to protect yourself. Take pictures. Hi, Brian. Have information readily available. Keep insurance information on hand. Make sure you have parental consent. Internet safety. Check out your open Wi-Fi's there. Do you want open Wi-Fi? Do you want to password protect it? Check out age 9. Kids make their moral foundations. By age 13, kids already, they will die for what they believe in it by age 13. So if your kids are getting exposed in your elementary areas to things in your internet, that's a problem. We keep our Wi-Fi password protected and secured for us. Make sure your policies are posted. Here's my final thing here, and these are resources, and these are listed there for you as well. The Center for Personal Protection and Safety is the company that I was talking about. Center for Personal Protection and Safety has a number of things they do for corporations and such for safety. For the church one, it's their cheapest one. The other ones are upwards of $400. This kit was $59.99 for me. This kit covers everything. And by the way, this kit was assembled by Brotherhood Mutual. It's right on the back. Brotherhood Mutual put it together. So they're on our side, as well as a great DVD as well to help cast vision to your security team about the who's, what's, where's, and why's. I was happy I bought it. It's got a lot of the work done for me. It has checklists. It has pull-out sheets in here, things to consider so you don't miss anything. So there's some stuff there about checking. And also, if you don't know about writing policies, check it out. StopItNow.com has many written policies that you can download and then edit to your liking. Does that sound good? All right, guys.
Thank you for listening to the 2013 Fusion Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.